You need human interaction, conflict, argument, debate. Margaret Heffernan. We are now about to commence the inauguration ceremony of the International Online Conference on Archaeology, Heritage Management and History under the theme Explore the Past for the Safe in the Future. In archaeology, you uncover the unknown. In diplomacy, you cover the known. Most venerable sirs of the Mahasangha, distinguished guests, esteemed scholars and fellow attendees, it is a great pleasure to welcome each of you to the International Online Conference on Archaeology, Heritage Management and History. This event brings together outstanding intellects and committed researchers from around the globe. This conference is hosted by the Department of Social Sciences and Comparative Studies of Bhikshu University of Sri Lanka. Our department is dedicated to preserving and promoting fields of social sciences including archaeology, heritage management and history. Today marks the beginning of an intellectual journey that spans history, archaeology and heritage management, fields that illuminate our past, shape our present and guide our future. We know you are joining us virtually from various parts of the world, and your presence reflects our shared commitment to learning, collaboration and discovery. We are honored to have you with us. Now let us move to the lighting of the traditional oil lamp, a symbolic act that dates back centuries and represent the illumination, knowledge and wisdom. Please welcome the dignitaries as they light the ceremonial lamp, marking the official commencement of our conference. To light the oil lamp, I would like to invite following guests. Venerable Kanangamuwe Rahula, Senior Professor in Sinhala. Dr. Venerable Galwave Wimalakanti, Senior Lecturer in Archaeology. Venerable Kirama Wimalatissa, Senior Lecturer in Buddhist Philosophy. Venerable Baladora Balangoda Ananda Chandrakirti, Senior Lecturer in Practical Buddhist Studies. Dr. Venerable Mahakachakodiye Panyasekara, Senior Lecturer in Sociology. Venerable Baladora Indrajoti, Senior Lecturer in Sanskrit. Dr. Venerable Uduvila Uparatana, Chair of the Conference and Senior Lecturer in Archaeology. Venerable Kalegama Jinaratana, Chief Organizer of the Conference and Senior Lecturer in Heritage Management. Venerable Madugalle Sudatta, Joint Secretary of the Conference and Lecturer in Education Science. Mr. Chandana Rohana Vitanachi, Senior Professor in Archaeology. Mr. Vitana Gedon Kitsiri, Registrar, Bhikshu University of Sri Lanka. Mr. G.R. Tusan Anuruddha Bursa, Bhikshu University of Sri Lanka. Mr. Tissa Bandara, Senior Assistant Librarian of Bhikshu University of Sri Lanka. Mrs. Aruni Veerasinghe, Senior Professor in Agriculture. Thank you for this beautiful and meaningful tradition, which remind us of the wisdom passed down through the ages and the new light of the knowledge we will share in the days to come. In the spirit of mindfulness and respect, we will now observe the 5 precepts, a moral foundation that guides our behavior and scholarly pursuit of truth. This observance will be led by Venerable Kirama Vimalatissa Thero, Senior Lecturer in Buddhist Philosophy and Head of the Department of Pali and Buddhist Studies.
Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Saṅghāṃ saraṇaṃ gacchāmi. Pānātipātā vēramaṇī sikkhapaдаṃ samādhiyāmi. Adinādānā vēramaṇī sikkhapaдаṃ samādhiyāmi. Kāmesu miccācārā vēramaṇī sikkhapaдаṃ samādhiyāmi. Musāvādā vēramaṇī sikkhapaдаṃ samādhiyāmi. Surāmēraya majjapamā daṭṭhānā vēramaṇī sikkhapadaṃ samādhiyāmi.
Thank you, Venerable Sir, for leading us in this moment of reflection. To officially welcome us all to this prestigious event, I now invite Venerable Dr. Uduvila Uparathana, Chair of the Conference and Senior Lecturer in Archaeology, to deliver the welcome address. Venerable Sir, the floor is yours.
myriad narratives. Over the next few sessions, we will engage in discussion, share innovative research, and explore new methodologies that challenge our traditional perspectives. The theme of this year's conference, Explore the Past for Shaping the Future, invites us to consider how we can effectively manage and interpret our archaeological sites and historical narratives in a way that respects their significance while making them accessible to future generations. As we embark on this journey together, let us remember the importance of collaboration and interdisciplinary approaches. Archaeology, history, and heritage management do not exist in isolation. They intersect with culture, technology, and community engagement. By fostering dialogue across these disciplines, we can enhance our understanding and improve the ways we protect or celebrate our shared heritage. Now, here I am going to welcome most senior professor, Venerable Kanangami Rahulathero, the Director, Unit of Postgraduate, External Degree and Extension Courses. Dr. Venerable Galway Vimalakanthi Thero, the Dean of Faculty of Languages and Cultural Studies. Senior Lecturer Venerable Kirama Vimalatissa Thero, the Head of the Department of Buddhist and Pali Studies. Senior Lecturer Venerable Baladura Indrajyothi Thero, the Head of the Department of Languages. Senior Lecturer Venerable Balangoda Ananda Chandakirti Thero, the Head of Department of Applied Buddhist Studies. Dr. Venerable Mahakachakodiye Panyasekara Thero, the Head of the Department of Social Sciences and Comparative Studies. I warmly welcome the keynote speaker, Dr. BHMW Bohingamuwa, Department of History and Archaeology, University of Ruhuna. Senior Professor Chandana Rohana Vitanachi, Department of Archaeology and Heritage Management, Rajarata University. Mr. V.D. Kitsiri, Registrar, Bhikshu University of Sri Lanka. Mr. G.R.T. Anuruddha Bursa, Bhikshu University of Sri Lanka. And Senior Assistant Librarian Y.K. Tissa Bandara, Bhikshu University of Sri Lanka. Senior Professor Aruni Veerasinghe, Consultant of Center of Quality Assurance, Bhikshu University of Sri Lanka. I would also like to take a moment to express our gratitude to the organizing committee, especially Venerable Lecturer Madugalli Sudatta Thero, who has worked tirelessly to make this event possible. Your dedication has laid the groundwork for what promised to be an inspiring and productive conference. In closing, I encourage each of you to take this opportunity to make connections, share your passion, and challenge your perspectives. Together, we can shape the future of archaeology and heritage management in a way that honor the past and inspires generation to come. Thank you and welcome to the conference.
Thank you, Venerable Sir, for your inspiring words and for reminding us of the importance of this gathering. Your vision had set the stage for what promises to be an extraordinary event. Next, we are privileged to hear from Venerable Dr. Galwave Vimalakanthi, Dean of the Faculty of Languages and Cultural Studies. Venerable Sir, we eagerly await your valuable insight.
Good morning, everybody. Venerable Senior Professor Kanangume Rahula Thero, the Director of the Unit of Undergraduate, Postgraduate, External Degrees and Extension Courses of the Bhiksu University of Sri Lanka, and Venerable Heads of the Departments, Directors of the Center for Quality Assurance, Internal Affairs and CPD, dear Venerable Senior Academics, dear academics, dear Mr. V.D. Kitsiri, the Registrar of the University, Mr. Tusan Anuruddha, the Bursar, and Mr. Tissa Bandara, the Deputy Librarian of the University, and also Dr. B.H.M. W. Bohingamua from the University of Ruhuna, our keynote speaker today, and all the Deputy Registrars, Senior Assistant Registrars and Assistant Registrars of the University, and all the executive members, members of the Council, members of the Senate, members of the faculty boards, all the foreign and local academics participating in the conference, all the administrative and non-administrative staffs, members of the university, the student monks, distinguished guests, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Vice Chancellor, Senior Professor Kanattegoda Saddharatana Anunayaka Thero, who is not present today because of his busy schedule in Colombo, participating in the governing process of the university, it gives me pleasure to address the gathering of this international conference as the Dean of the Faculty of Languages and Cultural Studies. This conference, themed Explore the Past for Shaping the Future, organized by the academic team of the Department of Social Sciences and Comparative Studies, aimed at exploring the opportunities and threats of the field of archaeology, history and heritage management. The Bhiksu University of Sri Lanka is one of the pioneering universities in Sri Lanka dedicated to the academic investigation of the Buddhism and other related disciplines. The university situated in the ancient inner city of Anuradhapura Kingdom, which is much developed city of South Asia at that time. So it bears a lot of archaeological sites. Because of that, the Bhiksu University of Sri Lanka always takes steps to investigate the social, cultural and economic values of the Buddhist establishment. On this occasion, our conference team decided to explore the main issues of the cultural sector. In this inaugural ceremony, our keynote speaker, Dr. B.H.M.W. Bohingamua, an erudite scholar of the archaeology and heritage management fields, will pay your attention to the main issues of the said conference theme. On behalf of the organizing committee, it is my great pleasure to thank you all, the Department of the Social Science and Comparative Studies, including the Head of the Department, Venerable Dr. Mahakaccha Kodiya Panyasekara Thero, and the former Head of the Department, Venerable Dr. Udugampala Gunananda Thero, along with the academic staff for organizing this kind of incredible international conference. Hence, the principal investigators who are ready to present their valuable findings at this international conference would have a chance to discuss the historical and cultural matters that arise in various platforms locally and internationally. Flourishing our aim, we received more than 160 abstracts, but we had to select only around 81 abstracts for this conference under the guidance and the comments of our review panel. All of you have been fortunate to participate and present your valuable research findings at this international conference. This conference became a reality with the help of all the bodies of the Department of Social Sciences and Comparative Studies under the guidance of the Faculty of Languages and Cultural Studies. We have several foreign scholars and participants from several countries who have given us remarkable support by participating via online to present their valuable findings. Finally, as the Dean of the Faculty of Languages and Cultural Studies, on behalf of the Vice Chancellor of the Bhiksu University of Sri Lanka, I hope that all of you will enjoy today and get maximum result from this international conference. Have a great conference. Thank you very much. May the Triple Gem bless you.
Venerable Sir, thank you for your encouraging, joyful and appreciative words on this special occasion. Dear all, one of the most significant moments of today's event is delivering the keynote address. It is with great honor that we are now welcome Dr. B.H.M.W. Bohingamua, a distinguished scholar in the fields of archaeology and heritage management. He is the keynote speaker of our conference. He will be introduced by Venerable Dr. Mahakacha Kodiye Panyasekara, Head of the Department of Social Sciences and Comparative Studies. Venerable Sir, we are honored to hear from you.
Good morning everybody. Senior Professor Venerable Kanangame Rahula Thero, Director of ICAHH, Venerable Sirs, esteemed Deans of Faculties, Directors, Head of the Departments, Committee members of the conference, distinguished guests and researchers. Now I am ready to introduce the keynote speaker. It is both honor and privilege to stand before you today to introduce our keynote speaker, a remarkable scholar and expert in the field of archaeology and heritage management, Dr. Vijayaratna Bohingamua. Dr. Bohingamua is a senior lecturer in the Department of History and Archaeology at the University of Ruhr, where his passion for archaeology and history shines brightly. His academic journey began at Banaras Hindu University in India, where he earned his first degree in archaeology in 1993. He then pursued a master's degree in prehistorical archaeology at Deccan College in Pune. Demonstrating his commitment to deepen in his knowledge and expertise in the field. His impressive career includes valuable experience as a research assistant at the Institute of Fundamental Studies in Kandy, and he later obtained an MPhil from the University of Cambridge, focusing on the ancient irrigation systems of Sri Lanka. His relentless pursuit of knowledge culminated in a PhD from University of Oxford, where he explored the intricate Indian Ocean interaction and internal networks of Sri Lanka in pre-modern times. Dr. Bohingamua has not only contributed to academic through teaching at several prestigious institutes in Sri Lanka, but he has also engaged in significant research projects, including the Oxford University-based Ceilings project and the Ancient Science and Technology program at the IFS. He currently serves as the President of the Council of Archaeologists in Sri Lanka, actively promoting the advancement of archaeology in our island. His role as a former editor of the Journal of the Royal Asiatic Society of Sri Lanka and his involvement with various archaeological foundations highlight his dedication to the field. Moreover, he is recognized as an Oxford Peridot Scholar and Fellow of the Cambridge Commonwealth Society, which is a testament to his academic excellence. Today, he will share his insight and expertise with us, drawing from his extensive research and experience. We are eager to learn from his perspective and to gain a deep understanding of the themes he will address. Please join us in welcoming Dr. Wijeratna Bohingamua to the stage. May the Triple Gem bless you and thank you.
Can you hear me? Good morning. Right Venerable Kanangamui Rahula, Senior Professor, and also the Director of the UPADIC, I'm told, Unit of Postgraduate and Extension Courses, I think. And then Venerable Deans of Faculties of Languages and Cultural Studies, and also Faculty of Buddhist Studies. I make apologies in advance and take the liberty of not mentioning names because I'm likely to make mistakes, and Bhante, please excuse me. And also chair of this conference, Venerable Dr. Uduvila Uparathana, and the conference chair, chief organizer, Venerable Kalegama Jinananda, and also Venerable staff, academic members of the academic departments, registrar and the members of the administration, librarian, bursa, and all other academic and administrative members of the Bhikkhu University of Sri Lanka. And also distinguished invitees and guests, paper presenters, and participants of this conference, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a privilege and an honor for me to stand on the podium today to deliver the keynote address of the Bhikkhu University of Sri Lanka. This invitation, Bhante, reminded me and took me down the memory lane some 2 decades when I was a probationary lecturer here teaching archaeology. And since then things have changed. Name of the university has changed. The location of the university has changed. And number of faculties have come up. So as the departments. and I'm sure the number of student monks have increased. More importantly, some of my colleagues who are here, like Senior Professor Kanangami Rahula, have climbed their ranks, got promotions and become senior professors. And some of them are vice chancellors and deans here. So the university has, gained tremendous, developments about which I am very pleased, so I am very happy to be here. And also this invitation has given me an opportunity to meet my friends and colleagues, not only from the big university but also from, adjoining universities like, Chandana Rohana Vitanachi and Aruni, who worked with me at the IFS for some years ago, and then Mr. Tissa Bandara, who was actually a senior to us in our field of archaeology. Now he is the librarian here. So therefore, I'm very pleased to be here, and therefore I want to thank the organizers. Can somebody move the slides, please? Is it this? I'm not sure how does it work. Can somebody do it for me, please? Otherwise we'll be wasting time. So until the technology works. Yes, thank you. Now the theme of this conference is exploring past for shaping future, and I think it is very timely and fitting theme considering the context within which we are in right now. Organizing conferences of this nature actually takes a lot of efforts, and therefore I want to thank and congratulate the members of the organizing committee. And I understand that it is organized by the Department of Social Sciences and Comparative Studies of the Faculty of Languages and Cultural Studies. So therefore, thank you very much for inviting me, to the chair and the chief organizer, and specifically it was Venerable Kalegama Jinrathana who invited me to this conference. Now then, I said that the conference theme is very fitting and timely. It's because as archaeologists, we believe that all societies are based on historical knowledge, the wisdom of the past. So therefore, we need to explore our past and our history in order to understand our roots and foundations. So Sri Lanka going through transformations, socio-political changes, and also for the same reason Buddhism and Buddhist Sangha are facing tremendous challenges to maintain its position in the society as spiritual leaders. So therefore I think it is time for us to look for our history and gain the wisdom and knowledge of the past, so that we can face these challenges. Next. So this is, go back. So therefore, can you go back? I have selected a theme that is also about the changes. Of course, the changes. I talk about the changes about the winds and the currents of the Indian Ocean, and then the monks and the boats and the merchants and missionaries. And the winds and the currents of the Indian Ocean were very detrimental for these changes that happened in the past. And monks and missionaries and merchants were interlinked to make best use of these changes that took place in the ocean. Therefore, I want to explore the role of Buddhist Sangha in the connectivity of ancient Sri Lanka using those winds and currents and the merchant ships that were moving in the Indian Ocean. So winds of change and the monks on the boats. Now I talk about the winds and the change of Indian Ocean currents and currents, which was detrimental for the navigation of the Indian Ocean. We talked about a history when there was no, engine boats. The navigation of Indian Ocean was almost entirely dependent on the winds and the currents of the Indian Ocean. So therefore it was very important for mariners and the merchants and the travelers, sailors to understand these wind patterns and the currents of the Indian Ocean, which was almost predictable, which was traveling from, blowing from northeast during the summer months and southwest during the winter. So if we traverse back in the history, say almost up to the middle of the first millennium BC, we will see how these networks are operating in the Indian Ocean, linking all the civilization around the Indian Ocean rim. As the speaker introduced me, I worked on these marine networks at the University of Oxford, almost 6 years actually, and traveling around the Indian Ocean to these ports and sites, trying to understand these winds and currents and the waves and the merchants and the monks. So if we place that navigation networks, we will see that Sri Lanka was right in the center of the Indian Ocean, linking all these networks connected to the civilizations in the west and the east and the north. So we were linked to the Mediterranean across Red Sea, to the Persian civilizations across the Arabian Gulf, and to the eastern coast civilizations of Africa, and to the Indus and the Ganges, and across the Strait of Malacca to civilizations in Southeast Asia, and across southern China Sea to the Canton and the civilizations in the China. What is important for us is that we are almost on the equator, where the winds and the currents of the Indian Ocean change their directions. So therefore we were at a natural advantage. Any mariner coming from east or west going to the other direction, they could sail only up to South India or Sri Lanka in one wind, and will have to wait there until the next wind changes the direction. So therefore all the mariners, the merchants coming and going to the other side of the Indian Ocean had to wait. So that was an opportunity for us to have international relations and trade commerce in Sri Lanka, which in fact is reflected in the history. As we see in the map of Ptolemy, Taprobana in Sri Lanka is actually depicted proportionately larger than the geographical region of India. Actually, that is not to say that Sri Lanka was bigger geographically, but that was the perception that sort of the world people had, because Sri Lanka was better known. So that tells our how we were famous at that time. This is also clear from Western records such as Cosmos. According to Cosmos, Sri Lanka is located in the center of Indian Ocean, and because of this central position, it was frequented by ships and mariners from all parts of India, Persia, Ethiopia, and also other areas. Similarly, Sri Lanka also sends its own ships and cargoes to the ports around the Indian Ocean. So therefore, Sri Lanka was the center of commerce. They call it Emporium of the East. So there are a number of factors that have acted in favor of Sri Lanka in this connectivity. One is, of course, the location of Sri Lanka, as I said, also the monsoon winds and the currents of the Indian Ocean. Then there are various ports and anchorages all around Sri Lanka, facilitating mariners and navigators. Also, Sri Lanka was very famous for high class goods such as gems, pearls, minerals, spices, and also world renowned steels and so on. So therefore Sri Lanka was a natural selection as far as archaeologists are concerned. But in this conference, I want to concentrate more on Buddhism, Buddhist monks, Buddhist relics, and places of worship, which were also very important and attraction to travelers and also scholars and Buddhists around the world. We are archaeologists again. In all ancient civilizations, ideology played a very significant role. In shaping the identities of cultures and civilizations. So is Sri Lanka. Nothing different actually. So therefore, I want to see how did the Buddhist ideology of missionary services and pilgrimage, as recommended by the Buddha himself, and also the supportive system provided by the Buddhist Sangha, contributed to the expansion of island's external connectivity, including cultural, political, and economic relations during pre-modern time, that is, before the collapse of the classical Rajarata civilization in the middle of the 13th century. However, there are also very negative ideas about Sri Lanka and Sri Lankans. For example, Toussaint. He said that Sinhalese never look towards the sea. And when it comes to navigation and nautical engineering, there is always foreigners. It was foreigners who came and did the navigation and also did the maritime trade. This is actually like very contrasting to what we see from Buddhist literature. Oh, sorry. When we study Buddhist literature, I think apologies to Mahasangha, who knows better than me. When we look at the Buddhist cosmology and the perception of the world, if you look at Paramattha Jyotika, for example, that has a world vision. In Paramattha Jyotika, Jambudvipa is located with other three land masses in the great ocean, and there existed several different seas, each having specific characteristics. They were close to Jambudvipa. And when we read Subparaka Jataka, it speaks about 6 different seas, the difference being colors, as in the Erythraean Sea, that was also in the Western concept, colors are the reason. And Mahavansa and Sahasravattupakarana speaks about Gota Samudra as being the Samudra around Sri Lanka. So therefore, Gunawardhana considered that the Sri Lankan Buddhists view world in a very broader, wider perspective, and they had an idea about where they live. This is also clear from Mahaniddesa. According to Mahaniddesa, Thambapani, Sri Lanka is located in the trade routes between Alisanda, that is probably Alexandria, in the in the west, and Swarnabhumi in the east. So therefore, they had a view about the world, and they knew where they were living in relation to the external world. So therefore, they had a cosmology and ideology. So I want to look at this ideology and perception. However, this lecture has a very modest objective. Neither does it aim to do a comprehensive review of available evidence of external Buddhist connections, nor does it attempt to draw any major conclusions. I don't want to do that. I don't want to attempt it here. I just want to advance an alternative approach to the world's Sri Lanka's external connectivity. That is to examine Buddhist ideology and supportive system provided by Buddhist Sangha as a possible potential prime mover, a determinant of external connections, and by doing so, I want to see what lessons we can learn to shape our present and future as the conference aims to do. And also I want to see that Bhiksu University of Sri Lanka taking a leading role, playing its historical role, as did the great centers of learning at Anuradhapura, Mahavihara, Jetavana and Abhayagiriya played during their heydays. Now then, I also argue that Sri Lanka's external connectivity, missionary services and pilgrimage were, they were based on Buddha's teachings and Buddhist philosophy. So when we look at Vinaya Pitaka Mahavagga Pali, the Buddhist Sangha were guided by Buddha's sermons with the invocation of Charata Bhikkhave Charikam Bahujana Hitaya Bahujana Sukhaya Lokanu Kampaya Atta Hitaya Sukhaya Deva Manusanang Ma Ekena Dve Agamitta. That is important. What Buddha says is, go far and wide and spread the word of the Buddha, but don't go in groups, go alone, so that the message of the Buddha can be spreaded, fast. So he encouraged this traveling, wandering. So go forth, bhikkhus, for the well-being of the many, do not go two in the same route. Now also, when we read Digha Nikaya Parinibbana Sutra, there is also encouragement for traveling. And Buddha identified and recommended 4 places that a pious person should visit with reverence. The birthplace of Tathagata, place where Tathagata attained supreme enlightenment, place where Tathagata, delivered his first sermon, that is Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta at Varanasi, where in fact I had my undergraduate studies. And then the place where Tathagata passed away into the state of Nibbana. The Buddhist missionary service and the pilgrimage was, of course, to me, was, based on these, teachings of Buddha. So Buddhist ideology had a very strong, bearing on Sri Lanka's external connectivity as well. Now then there is another thing very important for us, that is the Vassupanayika Kandakam of Vinaya Pitaka of Mahavagga, Pali. Apologies if I make mistakes. Bhikkhus were expected only to remain at one place during the rainy season, and every other time they were meant to travel and preach Buddhism, spread the word of the Buddha. And therefore they didn't have any attachment to any single place. They were not building monasteries. In fact they were. So they were not meant to. So detached from all attachment, bhikkhus were like birds who only had the burden of their feathers, were free to wander at any time for the propagation of Dhamma at distant lands. In fact, it was this principle that guided the bhikkhus like Fahian, who got into caravans and board on boats and wandered around the world, the Buddhist world that is, in search of Buddhist relics and worship the sacred places, and to learn different traditions and the philosophies of Buddhism as it was practiced around the Buddhist world. He visited Sri Lanka as well. So therefore, ideology had a very strong bearing on seafaring and external connections. That was true for all civilizations, and Sri Lanka was not an exception. Himansu Prabha Ray, concluded that the liberal attitudes of Buddhism towards transoceanic seafaring, as opposed to Brahmanical traditions as we see in Dharma Shastras of Hindu tradition, which imposed restrictions for crossing the seas, unlike that, Buddhism provided a ideological support system for seafaring and marine trade in India, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and Sri Lanka included in that system. The concept of Avalokitesvara Buddha as the savior of travelers from 8 dangers in Buddhism cited as an example. Buddhist Sangha were on board many of these boats, and they were intimately related, providing security and ideological spiritual support. So in Sri Lanka we had this Avalokitesvara tradition as clear from the statues along the coastal regions mostly. So we also shared the same ideological concepts. Now therefore I want to briefly look at 3 examples to understand Sri Lanka's connectivity: Sri Lanka, India relations, Southeast Asia, Sri Lanka relations, and then China, Sri Lanka relations before the collapse of the Rajarata civilization in the middle of the 13th century. Understandably, it was India that Sri Lanka had the earliest relations. These networks we can take as far as the middle of the first millennium BC. Trade commercial networks were operating between key ports like Tamralipti in India in the eastern coast, and Mahatita, Lankapatana, Gokana in Sri Lanka, and they were the key ports. They were also linked to hinterland, the capitals and other important cities. By 300 BC, we have evidence for regular traffic between Thamralipti and Jambukolapatana, as clear from the visit of Aritta to Thamralipti and proceeded to Pataliputra to invite Arahant Sangamitta. In fact, there is also evidence for the travel details. It took 7 days from Mahatitha to Jambukolapatana to Thamralipti, and another 7 days from there to Pataliputra. And Sangamitta took the same route and landed at Jambukolapatana, and from there to Anuradhapura. Now by 400 BC, these marine communication channels further expanded, linking almost all the ports, key ports in northern and northeastern and also eastern ports of Sri Lanka with those of the eastern coast, and they were detrimental for Sri Lanka's history. I don't want to go into details. These are listed in our chronicles. Sihala Vattupakarana, for example, says after crossing the Pork Strait, Sri Lankan Buddhist pilgrims took land routes along the eastern coast of India to reach sacred places, mostly in northern and northeastern India. And these are the same routes that people like Pahian took. Sihalatta Katha has a lot of stories that gives these details. However, it was the Mauryan patronage Buddhism that was very significant for the expansion of the Buddhism and these Buddhist networks across South and Southeast Asia and Sri Lanka. When it comes to Sri Lanka, by sending his own son Arahant Mahinda, the Emperor Asoka not only introduced Buddhism, but also he introduced and probably imposed upon us the Mauryan ideology, as India does always. Now by 2nd century BC, these networks have further expanded, Buddhist networks I am talking about. Sri Lanka was linked to almost all important Buddhist centers of India, including those in Himalayan region and probably in Afghanistan and all the way up to Alexandria, Egypt. And this is clear from the ceremony of laying foundation to Mahatupa. It illustrates not only the place of Sri Lanka in the Buddhist world and the recognition that we had, but also our links around the world. Now by around 1st century, we have this map illustrating the expansion of Buddhism into various places. In fact, merchants and the monks were instrumental either on land or on sea. So the role of monks and Buddhism is very significant. And by around the turn of the century, well, the transition of BC to Christian era, we see that these marine and merchant channels, communications of the Bay of Bengal, they were interlinked with those of the Arabian Sea, the western part of the Indian Ocean. We have an inscription called Periyaminakulam, which talks about a mariner or sailor named Naga, who worked for somebody called Aisai, identified by Paranavitana as Ajisaki of the Javanese tradition that indicates probably our trade, commercial and cultural relations that were sort of improving. This is also clear from archaeological findings such as I excavated at Manthai. So we have these what we call glass beads, Indo-Pacific beads. Sri Lanka, Mahatitha and Arikamedu is considered as the great makers of these glass beads. They are distributed from Eastern Africa across Phaeacian Gulf all the way up to China and Japan by 400 BC, and Southeast Asia were one of the major consumers of Sri Lankan beads, and also there is evidence for Sri Lankan garnet in Cambodia and so on, so illustrating improving and increasing connections. And then there is also evidence of transfer of technology. Transfer of technology, as we have understood at Samanala Weber, dating back to 400 BC, and the technology was transferred all the way across Burma, Cambodia, Southeast Asia to the Far East, Japan. This doesn't work. Excuse me. Can somebody move forward? So this is further evident from the Ratubuko inscription of central Indonesia dated to 8th century. At this inscription talks about Abhayagiriya monastery affiliated vihara, a branch of Abhayagiriya, situated in central Indonesia, illustrating how Sri Lankan monks were working as international scholars. There were branches. And then by the time of King Vijaybahu, close cultural and political relations were maintained with Burma. Later these cultural political relations expanded to trade and commerce. King Parakramabahu, for example, actively engaged in the trade in the Bay of Bengal region, and especially he was in charge of, he wanted to control the elephant trade, and for which reason, to gain the monopoly over elephant trade, he had a war with Burma. Aftermath of the invasion, Parakramabahu's invasion, it was Buddhist monks who mediated for peace. Unlike today's, we will invite people from other countries, but it was Buddhist monks who mediated peace and restoration of cordial relations between these two countries. So therefore the influence of Buddhist Sangha and Sri Lankan Buddhist tradition is very significant, especially in the region of Southeast Asia. The canonical tradition of Sri Lanka had a strong impact of historical writing of entire Southeast Asia, Burma, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, and so on. They were based on Mahavansa writing tradition. Similarly, Sri Lankan Buddhist monks were teachers of Pali and Theravada Buddhism in Southeast Asia. One of the good examples is this Myankuba temple in Pagan in Myanmar, which contains paintings of all major events of Mahavansa depicted as wall paintings. And also, DuPont, for example, argued that the so-called Amaravati Buddha statues of Southeast Asia are in fact of Sri Lankan tradition. And then some people also have suggested that even the Borobudur was designed by a monk from Abhayagiriya. So therefore, Buddhist monk had a very strong role. This is what you really need to reclaim. And this is further clear from our relations with China. These relations started, according to Chinese sources, from around the beginning of the Christian era. It is clear by way of coming Chinese envoys to the court of King Bhatikabaya, and also there is a reference in the Roman court. Pliny records that Sri Lankan envoy named Rakia speaks about Sri Lankan envoy going to Ceres, China. And these interactions further intensified after 5th century. As we know, Fahian came during that time, and 11 missions are recorded between 600 and 800 CE. Buddhist monks such as Dharmapala were used as envoys. They were the ambassadors. 2 of these missions were sent by King Mahanama, and he used 4 monks. And Buddhist relics such as Buddha statues, there's a jade Buddha statue which was sent, and also replica of Temple of Tooth. And according to Pukyo Chai, the records of the Buddhist countries, these relations were with the support of the blessings of the Abhayagiri Vihara bhikkhus. So you need to understand how important these Buddhist networks have been. And therefore, and also it is very clear that Buddhism in China collapsed in the 8th century, and then the Sri Lanka-China relations also collapsed. There is only one reference after the 8th century indicates how Buddhism and Buddhist networks, Buddhist Sangha were important in these relations. And Buddhist relations are clear from Sigiriya. There is a Sigiriya graffiti saying Apsara is wearing a Chinese silk, and also Chinese silk has been cloth has been found in Kota Vihara stupa as well. And then from past to present, this is what you want to do actually. So what we can learn from the past for shaping our present and the future. Now, in keeping with this conference, I have attempted to explore the past in brief, history of Sri Lanka, in order to understand the role of Buddhism, Buddhist Sangha, and Buddhist networks, which in creating identity for us, and also linking us with the cultures and countries around the world, especially the Indian Ocean. Now, my historical analysis, a brief analysis, illustrates that Buddhist networks were among the earliest, historically known communication channels that link Sri Lanka with outside world. Textual, epigraphic, and archaeological, including pilgrims' records, reveal that these pilgrim and communication channels linked Sri Lanka with India, Southeast Asia, China, at least from the beginning of the middle of the first millennium BC. And these Buddhist networks had a profound impact of the Indian Ocean trade as well as Indian Ocean cultures. Merchants and monks maintain an intimate relationship. For example, Buddhism was considered a key factor behind close economic and cultural relations between India, China during the first 6 centuries. That is true for Sri Lanka as well, as I have discussed. And then Buddhism was the key determinant of the relations between Sri Lanka and northern and eastern India. Strong and regular Buddhist networks operated between these two regions in terms of and based on the pilgrimage and scholarly exchanges. Same is true for Southeast Asia, Burma, Thailand, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, and Indonesia, and also with China. As I said before, the decline of Buddhism in China after 8th century had a profound impact on Sri Lanka-China relations, and I argued in Cambridge that that is because the decline of Buddhism, and Buddhism was a key determinant in these relations. Now then, with 3 great monasteries of Mahavihara, Jetavana, and Abhayagiriya at Anuradhapura, and many other monasteries elsewhere in the country, with distinguished scholars of Dhamma, language, arts, and architecture, and having some of the most venerated relics of Buddha, Sri Lanka was a center of attraction for Buddhist pilgrims and scholars from around the world actually. Sri Lankan bhikshu scholars were teaching Pali and Theravada Buddhism, and also probably designing monasteries, teaching art and architecture in various places in the world. According to the record of the Buddhist countries, it was Abhayagiriya Vihara which played a significant role. So that, and having had its own branches abroad, and also foreign students coming and learning there, like Amogha Vajira. Buddhist countries such as Burma always look to Sri Lanka for its cultural inspirations. And I talk about the winds of change, and now I'll talk about the winds of change and the diplomacy and geopolitics. Things have changed. Buddhist monks, of course, have penetrated every corner of the world. Now we have monasteries almost in all key countries, capitals, and cities, and they have also learned foreign languages, as I can see here. Monks very fluently speak English and other languages. And one of the issues actually we have, however, is that while the elder generation of Buddhist monks, scholars, there is a significant, very distinguished scholars, but the younger generation doesn't seem to be interested in learning Pali and Buddhism. That is a problem. And no longer the Sri Lankan state, as in the past, seek the assistance of the Sangha for establishing and strengthening diplomatic and cultural relations. They don't want Buddhist monks now. Not to deal with even predominantly Buddhist countries such as Southeast Asia. They'll appoint, other people who I do want to mention here as ambassador to these countries, which was not done in the past. The Indian Ocean politics has changed. 2 countries, China and India, with which Sri Lanka had the strongest links and looked for inspirations, are competing for supremacy of the Indian Ocean, and trying to get best out of Sri Lanka. So we have a challenge. Now, for example, the recent increase of interest of geopolitical and economic significance of the Indian Ocean has a strong bearing on Sri Lanka. Like India's Look East and Act Fast policy, and the Setu Samudram project across the Pork Strait that we talked And that was actually a shortcut or a cultural divide. It was like cultural divide, But then it didn't prevent, cultural interactions with India. Now they are trying to build a bridge, and how that will affect Sri Lanka and, Sri Lanka's, cultural character. And then there is China, it is, one belt and one road project that is recreating the ancient Silk Road of the sea. So these are biggest challenges now we are facing when it comes to international relations. So what role can this Buddhist Sangha play in these? So therefore, now I look onto the bhikkhus of Bhikkhu University of Sri Lanka, located in the citadel of Anuradhapura, and in the vicinity of those great monasteries, Abhayagiriya, Jetavana, and Mahavihara. Bhikkhu University of Sri Lanka has a historic role to play. Firstly, it needs to be a center of excellence for Buddhist learning, and then a leader of Buddhist relations across the continents. With the availability of information technology, knowledge is at your fingertips. No longer you need to depend on the mercy of the merchants and travel on the caravans or boats or ships of hazardous and dangerous land routes. However, to make best use of these advantages, Bhikkhu University of Sri Lanka will have to train its students not only in Tripitaka, Pali, Sanskrit and related languages, but along with thorough knowledge of them, it is also absolutely necessary to train them in various foreign languages. I understand that Bhikkhu University teaches Japanese and Chinese and these languages now. So they have taken initiatives. Also information technology and probably the geopolitics of the Indian Ocean as well as elsewhere. For this purpose you need to interact and engage with international scholarship, and hence this conference is timely and it is fitting. I'm sure during the course of the deliberations in the coming days, papers and the scholars will deal with some of these matters, and they'll provide the insights that is needed for us, insights from the past for us in the present and for the future. I hope Bhikkhu University of Sri Lanka is in the right path and in the right hands, and it would overcome all these challenges that I have said and accomplish its historical, accomplish its goals and play its historical goal. Thank you very much.
We extend our gratitude to you, Dr. Bohingamua, for such an engaging keynote address. Your perspective have set the dynamic stage for the conference's upcoming dialogues. As a token of our appreciation for the invaluable contribution made by our keynote speaker, we will now present a memorandum. This will be offered by Senior Professor in Sinhala, Venerable Kanangamuwe Rahula Thero. Thank you, Venerable Sir, for your contribution. Finally, to express our collective gratitude to all those who have worked tirelessly to make this event possible, I invite Venerable Kalegama Jinaratana Thero, Chief Organizer of the conference, to deliver the Thanksgiving address.
Good morning all the esteemed guests and fellow participants via on-site and online. As we gather here at this prestigious international conference on archaeology, heritage management and history, I would like to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude to those who have made this event possible. First and foremost, I extend my sincere thanks to Most Venerable Senior Professor Kanathiyuda Saddharatana Annayaka Thera, the Vice Chancellor of Bhikkhu Institute of Sri Lanka. Your unwavering commitment to academic excellence and the promotion of cultural heritage has laid the foundation for this conference. Your vision inspired us all to explore and protect our rich history. I would also like to thank the Dean and the head of the department. Your leadership and guidance have been instrumental in organizing this event. Your dedication to nurturing knowledge and fostering collaboration among scholars and practitioners in the field is truly commendable. A special thank you to all the lecturers and faculty members who have contributed their expertise and time. Your passion for archaeology and heritage management enrich the academic environment and inspire the next generation of researchers and practitioners. To our distinguished keynote speaker, we are grateful for your insight and the wealth of knowledge you bring our discussions. Your contribution not only elevate our understanding of the subject but also spark meaningful conversation that extend beyond this conference. I would like to acknowledge the registrar and the bursar along with all the officers and other non-academic staff of the university. Your hard work behind the scenes ensure that everything runs smoothly, allowing us to focus on the important topic at hand. Thank you for your dedication and support. Finally, I extend my gratitude to each and every participant here today. Your presence and engagement are what make this conference truly special. Together we are embarking on a journey to explore, preserve and celebrate our shared heritage. Thank you all once again for your invaluable contribution. Let us continue to learn from each other and inspire future generations to cherish and protect our cultural legacy. Thank you for listening me again.
Thank you, Venerable Sir, for your heartfelt words of gratitude and for your leadership in organizing this important event. The inauguration ceremony is now closed. Thank you very much for your virtual participation in this special event from various locations around the world. Dear all presenters, please pay your kind attention to this special announcement. This is regarding session arrangement of the conference. First session of the conference will be held from 10:30 to 11:30 am. After that we will take a lunch break. Lunch break will be held from 11:30 to 12:45. After the lunch, second session of the conference will be conducted from 1 to 2:30 p.m. On behalf of the organizing committee, we kindly invite you to attend the respective sessions. Your presence will be greatly appreciated. May the Triple Gem bless you.